Hi everyone, I'm Mark Kateli, Florida Native Plant Society President for 2023. Welcome to the Florida Native Plant Society annual meeting. We are so glad you're here. Florida Native Plant Society is a nonprofit dedicated to the conservation, preservation, and restoration of Florida's native plants and native plant communities. As many of us know firsthand, native plants provide food and shelter for wildlife, help clean our air and water, and buffer our coastlines from storms. This is a wonderful and meaningful organization to be a part of. FNPS has accomplished many things in the past year. Several of our committees that work to promote the use and conservation of native plants in Florida will be providing you with short updates this morning. They are the Education and Landscape Committee, which promotes the value of native plants through visibility and education. The Policy and Legislation Committee, which advocates and lobbies for strong environmental measures in Florida. The Conservation Committee, which works to protect native plant habitats. The Science Committee, which raises awareness about native plants through cutting-edge research and education. The Finance Committee, which oversees the financial stability and long-term funding goals of the organization. The Conference Committee, which oversees the most important educational outreach of the society. The Communications Committee, which ensures the organization's resource broadcasting on diverse platforms is up to date and informative. And the Council of Chapters, the nexus of our wonderful chapters to discuss and work together. We will conclude the meeting with awards that recognize volunteers who have gone above and beyond in their call to service, teams that have made significant contributions to the society's success, and mentors who have demonstrated outstanding leadership in their legacy with FNPS. The board is proud to recognize their achievements and celebrate contributions to our organization. A special thank you to all our Florida Native Plant Society volunteers and supporters who are doing their own part across the state. We are grateful and proud of your accomplishments and are excited to continue the good work together in the years to come. But first, let's start this meeting with a call to order and a report from our wonderful Executive Director, Lynda Davis.
Hi there. Thank you for being with us today. My name is Lynda Davis. I'm Executive Director of the Florida Native Plant Society. I've been in post almost 1 year now, fast approaching my anniversary, and I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for welcoming me and sharing your knowledge with me. I really do appreciate it. It is a privilege to be part of such an incredible organization. My role today is to encourage you all to take part in the voting, of course, for you to listen to our updates from our committee members. You're going to be hearing from many of them today, giving you an insight into what's been happening over the past year here. There's a lot to share. We're going to try and keep it nice and concise so that we can get to the voting. So, as you'll be hearing from our committee members, I won't reiterate everything that they're saying, but there are a few things I would like to touch on. One thing in particular is around our memberships. Our members are the lifeblood of the Native Plant Society. We rely on you. You are our volunteers. We listen to you. We really do appreciate everything that our members do and the support that you give the organisation. So what's really exciting is how our memberships are increasing. Each year we're seeing a year-on-year increase, and obviously the target and the plan is to continue that growth. The more people that we can get on board, the more we can do. Our community is made up of such interesting people from such diverse backgrounds, and together we can do a lot. So in the last year, I did want to let you know that since our last annual meeting, we had at that point 5,850 members, and today we're at around 7,000 members, which is a really impressive increase over that amount of time. My goal, my aim is to one day get us to 10,000, and I think we can get there. You know, there are lots of people that are getting more and more interested in our work every day, and so I'll work very hard to encourage them to join us, and I hope that you will also talk to any of your friends and family that are interested in becoming part of the society. We have also already had an additional 16 new lifetime members in 2023 alone, which is really exciting. For people to make that kind of commitment to FNPS is something we're very, very grateful for. The other exciting piece of news that I wanted to share is that our 2022 annual fundraising campaign raised over $55,000 this year, and that's a really amazing achievement. We're so grateful to everybody. It really does go directly to us being able to deliver the work that we do. So thank you all for that. I also wanted to thank the Brown Family Foundation for their continued support. They have been very generous in the past, and they continue to be so, and so we're very glad for their support. The other thing I really want to share with you is our plans for the future. We will be having a strategic planning process that's going to take place in August. That's going to be with our board, but we'll also want to be getting feedback from all our members and committees and the general public too. The aim of that is to take the wealth of experience, actions, activities that have taken part over the last 40 years and really set us up for the future. So what as an organization do we really want? What does Florida need? What are we good at? And how can we get there? And so that's a process that's going to start very soon. I'm very excited about it. I think it's going to stand us in good stead for the future. So you will be hearing more about that. We are in the process right now of planning our 2024 event program. We're going to try and experiment with a few new things, I think, this year, which will be really exciting. If you have any particular events you would like to see us do, please do contact me. I'm always open to ideas and suggestions. We really want to improve our outreach, get out to as many people as possible, and share as much information and knowledge as possible. We are also going to be recruiting an intern this year, thanks to the funding from the Wildflower Foundation. And as well as that, we will be recruiting an additional member of staff in the fall. So both of those opportunities are being worked on at the moment, and you will be hearing about those in social media and other channels shortly. I would also like to give special thanks to our staff. We're a very small team here. There's 3 of us, me included. So I'd like to thank Val and Lilly. They both work incredibly hard to do everything they can for the society. So thank you to them. I'd also like to thank our partners. We have an amazing network of partners that we work with alongside on all sorts of different activities across the state. And that's something that we're going to be really focusing on over the coming years, is developing those partnerships and seeing how we can build the capacity of our partners as well as ourselves to achieve more of our mission. So thank you so much for being here today. Please do make sure you vote for our officers. That's obviously one of the main functions of the annual meeting. I'm very excited about the upcoming year and getting out and meeting more of you. So thank you, and have a great rest of your meeting.
Welcome to everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about our committee and some of the things that we have been working on and hope to work on. Our members include other board members, but we're always interested in new board members, committee members. Our main purpose for these past few months have been our landscape awards. And we've worked on those landscape awards, updating the application, updating the categories, updating the submittal requirements. And what I want to do is talk a little bit about that. For anyone, and we encourage all chapters to go out and promote the awards. Your local newspaper, a local community paper, through your chapter. We're looking for single family, multifamily, businesses, commercial, retail, government, restoration areas, those that are specialty butterfly, wildflower gardens. So we do encourage everyone. We want to try and get into the double digits for applications this year. Some of the rules: it is a minimum 2-year grow-in. It is native plants. There are some percentages for that garden. And you can find these rules on the website, also the FNPS website. We're looking for those that have at least 60, 80%, 100% native plants. And with that, some of the questions we're looking at are in the submittals are what the native community was, the variety, what pollinators, wildlife are using it, what are the maintenance requirements, what are the design concepts that were used? Did you use any creative solutions for any challenges? What sustainable practices? Are there any educational components to it? Our deadline is August 31st. So please, please go out and try to find those gardens. It's only through these gardens that are exemplary can we encourage other folks to mimic, to learn from these gardens that we hope to highlight here. There are fees to the submittal, and I just want to mention them briefly. For residential and community groups, it's $40. For government entities, charities, $60. And for retail, commercial, industrial, it's $100. Now, if your chapter would like to be considered for a fee waiver, please contact the grant coordinator at info@fnps.org. So the awards are very important. This is a way that our society can get out into the public and we can engage people even outside our membership and hopefully bring them in. I do want to mention that we hope to do other projects too that we're working on, which is, and I've mentioned it in our annual report, we're looking at supplementing pattern books that are out there and supplementing and providing for our members and public native garden, native flower garden focused, as opposed to exotics or cultivars that are outside the natives. We want to try to encourage, so we're trying to put that information out there. We also are working on updating our landscape ordinance to increase at the government level the percentage of natives in developed properties, whether it be a retail or multifamily or subdivision. So we're working on that and the protection of trees in that landscape ordinance. We'd like to mention to everyone, again, if you are interested in joining us, let me know. My email address is pburgos@fnps.org. Other things we hope to do, creating CEU courses. We hope to update our regional landscape plan, the brochure, and we hope to work with the local publisher to create educational materials. So if you're interested, please reach out. Thank you so much.
I'm Gene Kelly, the chair of the Policy and Legislation Committee. Joining me today is Sue Mullins. She's the Society's lobbyist. She represents us in Tallahassee. Most of the work she does for us is during the legislative session, which, if you've been following the news, was just recently concluded. And we would like to speak today about the highlights and lowlights of that session. There's a lot we're not going to discuss. You've probably seen a lot in the news. We are really just going to focus on those aspects of the session that we considered most relevant to the Society's mission. And in a few minutes, I am going to turn it over to Sue so she can share some of her perspective on the session. A couple things I would like to say. First of all, again, this is just highlights and lowlights. If you have questions or comments, we can't really entertain those during this session, but you can feel free to contact me anytime. at policy@fnps.org. Again, policy@fnps.org, and I'll respond to you individually. So first, I would like to talk about the budget, because that really does paint a good picture overall of where the session went. You may have read that this was the largest budget the state has ever passed, $117 billion. And a fairly significant portion of that is environmental spending. The numbers you're looking at here are related to Everglades restoration. That gets a significant amount of funding every year, as it should, the largest environmental restoration project ever attempted anywhere in the world. So you can see there's a total of $624 million devoted to Everglades projects this year, including CERP, the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Program, and creation of the Everglades Agricultural Area Reservoir. Another major category of environmental spending addresses our water issues. It's no secret that we really are facing a water quality crisis, and over $400 million is being dedicated to addressing water issues in the state, including red tide, harmful algal blooms, springs restoration. Springs restoration got $50 million, as it does every year. Another important component of this is looking at the Indian River Lagoon, which is receiving over $100 million this year. Here are several other categories of environmental spending. I really want to focus on land conservation, because that's always important to the Native Plant Society. And Florida Forever did get $100 million this year. Unfortunately, we just found out yesterday or the day before, the $100 million that had been allocated for the Rural and Family Lands Protection Program, that's the program that buys conservation easements over agricultural land. That spending was vetoed by the governor. But if you look at the bottom of that list in the middle under land conservation, $850 million has been allocated for projects within the Ocala to Osceola corridor and the Caloosahatchee to Big Cypress corridor. Very important projects, a very significant amount of spending. And it does reflect a pretty strong commitment to land conservation by the state. That $850 million is coming right out of general revenue. That bottom category, resiliency, another really critically important element in how our state is responding to the challenges of climate change, most especially to sea level rise. Many hundreds of millions are dedicated to it this year, as in the previous couple of years, and we can expect that we will see that continue. I'm going to address this in a little more detail at the end of the presentation, but it really is critically important that the state gets serious about responding to the threats of sea level rise. And with that, I would like Sue to take over. She's going to guide you through a few slides that address legislation from this recently concluded session. Take it away, Sue.
Thank you, Gene. One of the most pivotal things that we're involved in are the grants to local communities to do native plant restorations or initial plantings. One of the ways that probably the best and most dependable way that we've been able to continue that for the last couple of decades is through the Department of Agriculture Division of Plant Industries grant program. It's Endangered and Threatened Native Flora Conservation Grants. Every year we go to the Department of Agriculture and make sure that this line item is in their what they call LBR, legislative budget request, that's each of the agencies produce. Many times it has kind of fallen out. And so we're there to remind them of the good work that needs to be done. And many of the folks that work in the division plant industry are, do appreciate that and appreciate, the kind of work that we're doing to combat invasives as well as restore with native plantings. So we make sure that part is in the budget. And then as the budget negotiations take place, we kind of fight to maintain that funding or raise it if we can. Just for example, this year, the flat line item fee came out at $200,000. And so Gene and others quickly put together a good kind of narrative about why we need funding beyond that. And so we were able to get it up, a few $1,000s above that this year at 217. And then we've already made arrangements to meet with the deputy secretary or deputy commissioner, I should say, of Department of Agriculture to get that number back up. In previous years, good budget years, which this was one, we've gotten actually $250,000, so $250,000 to spread across these statewide groups. And as you see on the screen, Archibald is a huge recipient, Bach Tower, Fairchild, a lot of the folks on the ground doing the good work of native plant restoration. So the good bills, that it's always a short list. The Everglades Protection Area, this would have been a great bill to basically seal out any kind of new development within the Everglades Protection Area. It would be they would be reviewed automatically for adverse impacts to the restoration, which you saw before that we're paying over $624 million for annually. So this would have been a great bill to pass. It unfortunately didn't make it over the finish line, and so we'll try again next year to get that one. The next one that we're looking at is the Senate Bill 724. So that's also a really good piece of legislation that for the first time establishes a way to look at restoring seagrass. As you guys probably have heard through the news the last couple of years, record deaths of manatees, mainly from starvation, not able to access seagrass, and in huge swaths of our floor just off the coast is being churned up, and seagrass is being lost. And so this attempt is to require a 10-year restoration plan that would be done between a few state agencies and Mote Marine Lab and University of Florida as well, to basically establish a plan to restore the seagrass, which is an art. It's a very delicate art. It's been tried in small kind of patches in different places, and it's kind of iffy whether or not it can be restored substantially the way we need to. But now we have funding and policy in place to have a restoration plan. So the next one, you see the flooding and sea level rise vulnerability studies. That's an amazing piece of legislation because, excuse me, in all of the Resilient Florida grant programs that you saw, there's over $350 million in different planning and grants to kind of buffet ourselves from the impacts of sea level rise. No one has ever codified the cause and really still don't mention it when talking about it. So this nebulous sea level rise will now at least be the subject of some good data. What this bill does is that it basically allows government to pull down NOAA and other data and compare it to local data to figure out how these any kind of coastal construction projects or even beach renourishment projects could be affected by sea level rise. And the good news about that is, among other things, is any of the municipalities or counties that have these feasibility studies, they're going to be encouraged to use nature-based solutions. And Gene's can talk a little bit more about an example of that at the conclusion of this presentation, but basically it's living shorelines, it's reefs, oyster reefs, mangrove plantings, et cetera, the kind of things that we would want to see rather than seawalls and such as that. And then also this bill mandates that the water management districts support that local government adaptation planning. So, we're not yet getting to the cause or mitigating climate change, but we are at least to some extent responding to it through these measures. So, and then the final bill here, 7002, the septic tank permitting rules is yet another way besides our funding to get at our water quality areas. We're having so many issues with septic tank runoff. We have way too many septic tanks in the state that are pouring basically into our waterways and into the Gulf, and then there begins that whole cycle of algal blooms and the whole bit. So this bill is very good. It would require more stringent permitting for in areas with remediation plans, which are typically those around springs or the openings to watersheds like Charlotte Harbor and other places where our drinking water is so crucial. So those are the bills. And then, as Gene mentioned before, we did get the $100 million annual appropriation to Florida Forever. So, and that's the status of bills. Unfortunately, you probably heard it in my voice. We lost 192. It died in the House, which means it never made it over to the Senate to keep going. So with that, Gene, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Okay. There was another sneaky trick that was pulled late in session. The Sunday before the end of the session, True Green lobbied the Senate President, Kathleen Passidomo, and she did what's known as a back of the bill provision that was added directly to the budget bill, Senate Bill 2502. And what that provision does, it will prohibit local governments from either adopting a fertilizer ordinance or amending one if they already have one. The upside to this is since it was attached to the budget bill, it can only be good for 1 year. So it's like a 1-year ban, a 1-year preemption of local governments. We see lots of attempts by the legislature to preempt local government authority. We did, along with pretty much every other conservation organization in the state, ask the governor to veto that. Unfortunately, he did not. The first bill you see on this list, Senate Bill 540, that disempowers citizens from challenging comprehensive plan amendments. That was another one that really it had a major response from all the conservation organizations. Another one that everyone was asking for a veto. Unfortunately,
So over in Pasco County, there's another bill that came about that would have been a real chilling effect for us in particular with regard to land management reviews, but that wasn't even the subject of the bill. They kind of tacked that on for good measure. The long and short of it is that Senate Bill 1240, House Bill 1197 was sponsored by 2 Pasco County legislators to basically roll back the wetlands type protections for a piece of private property. And you see that a lot in the legislature where one issue by one landowner begets an entire state law. And in this case, we were able to stop that before it got out of before it was even heard in a committee. But basically, this would have been a huge rollback for environmental protection, for growth management, and then for us with land management reviews, which I know a lot of you guys are involved in.
thanks, Sue.
Yeah.
I just want to close out by segueing away from the legislative session, but this is related. We recently became aware of a project proposed by the Army Corps of Engineers, and this is related to that whole resiliency issue, how we respond to sea level rise. The Army Corps had been working on this for several years, and what you see here is kind of a mock-up of what they were proposing to do to protect Naples from the impacts of sea level rise. Sue mentioned there was a bill addressing resiliency, and it really tried to emphasize using green solutions, living shoreline kinds of solutions, what we might call green infrastructure. Then there's gray infrastructure, where you're really just looking at seawalls, dikes, and other kinds of hard infrastructure, engineered projects like that. And as you can see here, that's what the Army Corps was proposing for Naples. It was all gray infrastructure. They were actually proposing to build a structure all the way across Wiggins Pass. That's Naples you see in the background. It's public land, it's important to note, on both the north and south side of that inlet. But this plan, they were going to be able to actually close off the entire inlet whenever they were expecting a storm. The public in Naples, they were not really appreciative of this, and during a recent series of public meetings, orchestrated largely by the Conservancy of Southwest Florida. This image came from their website, but they really were successful at coordinating a response from the public. Our Naples chapter also participated, and the good news here is that they were successful. The Army Corps of Engineers is reassessing this approach. They're now talking about either using all green solutions, living shoreline kinds of solutions, or some hybrid where there would be a mix of the both. So the point I want to make is we can be successful when we attack or engage with agencies like the Army Corps on projects like this. It remains to be seen what the final proposal is going to look like. But we're confident now that the public is so heavily engaged that they will come up with something a little more environmentally friendly than what you see here. And this is just another mock-up of some of the kinds of living shoreline solutions that have been promoted. With the hundreds of millions of dollars being spent on resiliency, we're going to see local governments all over the state, all along the shoreline, coming up with projects to address sea level rise. And we really need you, our members, to kind of be our eyes and ears. We can't always be aware of these, and we can't really attack them successfully if they're projects that are really inappropriate like this, unless we have local representation and participation. So if you are a member, and especially if you live along the coast, we really want to invite you to be our eyes and ears, to become engaged as a chapter, and to also bring us into the fold if we can assist you in any way. I just want to close by noting, again, we can't really take questions and answers, but I would appreciate hearing from any of you that have comments about what we're doing, recommendations about what we could or should be doing or be doing better. And you can contact me at policy@fnps.org. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm John Benton, a current chair of the Florida Native Plant Conservation Committee. And this year has been, conservation is such an important part to our society's core mission. And it's been an active year for us. We've had some very good successes in building or enhancing some of our big partnerships, such as with Atlanta Botanical Gardens, and the University of Florida. And I think Lilly will talk a little bit more about some of those. We were able to form a new alliance with Putnam Land Conservancy to manage a small tract of land that we have in Marion County that it supports a number of protected species, both animal and plant. So one of the important things that we do that Gene has already mentioned is the land management review. And that gives us a seat at the table for we sit at the table with most of the public agencies on the big tracts of land and advise them on plant management. We are looking at potentially expanding that participation to the Acquisition and Restoration Council, which is another process which actually does the revisions or writes new plans altogether. And we're looking at how we could do that effectively. Our committee membership has expanded this year, and we have taken on a few projects. One of the projects that we've accomplished is revising the PowerPoint that Juliet did for plant rescues. It walks in any interested party in how to go about assessing the property, how to get the permits, how to think about removing the plants, getting them to an intermediate area, and then getting those plants back to the public areas in the vicinity. And that is what the rescue program is aimed at, is getting plant material that would otherwise be lost to imminent development to some kind of a local public area that can use them, county property, water management districts, conservation lands of some kind that are undergoing restoration. We've also got a line item budget that can help chapters in that. We have some money for pots or markers, or if somebody needs to rent a mule to transport plants from a property. So there are a variety of things that this funding could be used for. If you're interested in that process, contact me at conservation@fnps.org, and we'll get that process started. We will also get that PowerPoint out soon. One of our biggest tasks is to review and award the conservation grants. And this year we had 5 good applications. We would like more, but we had 5 good ones and 2 particularly good ones. The winner this year is the Lake Griffin State Park, sponsored by the Villages chapter, which is addressing innovative conservation needs for the clasping area. The park wants to do a better burn management, and they are having a lot of problems with Natal grass. And so they've come up with some strategies to minimize that and implement their burn program. And so that was the winner for this year. If you have any ideas or would like to participate on the Conservation Committee, we welcome your comments. Again, conservation@fnps.org. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lilly Anderson-Messec. I am going to report on the Tree Keepers project. So this year we found 31 new Torreya taxifolia trees on the privately owned lands that we surveyed, which is definitely a significant decrease from previous years, but it depends so much on quality of habitat that we're surveying. We surveyed 8 separate properties, large timber parcels that equal to approximately 660 acres. We had over 20 volunteers come out this season and survey with us. And just this recent quarter, from January to March, we had over 290 hours of volunteer time invested on surveys. And the big news this year is that I I've been collecting canker samples to send to the U.S. Forest Pathology Lab to aid in their research and help develop a PCR DNA test for the fusarium that is infecting and killing Torreya taxifolia. And they collected successful samples that they were able to grow out in the lab, and they are developing a PCR test now, which is a big deal because now we'll be able to test a Torreya to see if it's actually infected and prove that it's infected. We also finally got permission to survey a large timber corporation properties. That's a very large landowner in the region, and I'm very excited. I just started getting onto that property this spring, and we found 9 trees on that first property. So yeah, I'm very excited to continue surveying their properties. We also found several other listed species that are tracked by FNA. 3 of the highlights of the other species, these are new populations of them that I found, are Baptisia megacarpa, which is federally endangered now, Carex calcifusion, which is only a few known populations in Florida, and Schisandra glabra, which is also only a few known populations in Florida. I gave 5 presentations on the Torreya project, including 2 podcast interviews discussing Torreya, and even a YouTube channel presentation about Torreya and the project. And yeah, those are the highlights. And I know we're short on time, so that's all for me.
Good morning. I'm Paul Schmalzer, chair of the FNPS Science Advisory Committee. Our committee has 2 main tasks. One is the science track, the research track section of the annual conference. We did a call for papers and posters in the fall, and we got 11 abstracts from that. And we had 6 papers and 5 posters presented at the conference from that effort. And of those 11, 5 were presentations, 3 papers and 2 posters by previous recipients of FNPS research grants. And our second main activity of our committee is the management of the research grant program for FNPS. FNPS endowment research grants are funded by earnings from the FNPS endowment and from donations by chapters and individuals. We had a budget this year to fund 3 grants at $2,500 a piece from that program, and then we had one donation from the Sea Rocket chapter of $500 towards those grants. The second grant program that we have is the Cornelia McNamara grant, which was funded by a contribution from an individual. This is the 3rd year of that program, and it funds a grant of $1,500. And we had good applications for both of these grant programs, and they were reviewed by the members of the Science Advisory Committee, and we recommended 3 grants, 3 awards for the endowment research grants and 1 for the McNamara grant, which was approved by the board. The McNamara grant for 2023 is going to Madeline Bednar of Miami University of Ohio on conservation genetics of Sarracenia rubra subspecies gulfensis, a petitioned pitcher plant of the Florida Panhandle. The 3 endowment research grants this year are going to Clayton Hale of the University of Georgia, assessing the extinction risk of the imperiled shrub Fothergilla milleri. Second, to Fernando Rocaventa of Northwestern University Chicago Botanic Garden, genetic diversity in rare Oncidian orchids of South Florida. And the third to Elizabeth White, University of Florida, comparative phylogeography of species of Xyris, a model for understanding the factors that shape genetic structure in a North American coastal plain. One other note I would make is that this year we've seen at least 6 scientific journal papers published from projects supported in part by previous FNPS research grants, which is an indication of the importance of this grant program to advancing science understanding of plants and plant communities in Florida. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Athena Phillips. I'm a conference chair, and I'm pleased to report a successful conference and our plans for the future. I'll sum it up here, but there are more details in my post-written report if anybody's interested. Our committee consists of a dozen active members and a dozen supporting contributors, which includes staff and fellow committee members. So we provide a broad spectrum of perspectives. The conference is important because it highlights new research and emerging information. It brings in speakers from a variety of fields, organizations, and agencies, which builds partnerships in our greater conservation community. It provides members with updates on our society's work, helps fund our mission work, and it establishes our organization at the forefront of Florida's environmental organizations. But mostly it inspires and brings us together, I think. Last year's post-conference survey showed a strong interest in resuming in-person events, but there were still lingering concerns over the pandemic and an appreciation for the virtual platform, which allows attendance by those who normally couldn't travel. To facilitate the different views, the idea was hatched to hold another virtual conference, but with in-person field days around the state. So we sought willing chapters, and we were pleased to have Couplet Fern, Magnolia, Sarracenia, Sweet Bay, and Naples step up to make this happen, and we give big thanks to them. The conference and the field days were scheduled for consecutive weekends to allow easy attendance for one or for all. We learned many things from the format, which we can apply to future events. And one of our main takeaways was that the virtual conference registrations were down, probably due to a lack of enthusiasm for ongoing virtual events. And while the in-person field days were successful, no event was 100% sold out either. So overall, 2023, I consider a great success. We stayed on budget. We saved money by using our in-house Civi CRM system for registrations, which helped cover additional expenses such as the poster presentation that we added on. Sponsorships exceeded our target, and with their generous support and the wonderful silent auction donors and bidders, we anticipate a net revenue of about $10,000. So big yay on that one. As the 2023 conference approached, we were looking for a host chapter for the next in-person conference, and we were thrilled to have Paints Prairie volunteer. So we started looking into possible venues available in the area within 1 year time frame, and after seeing the recent spikes in the cost and running a budget draft, it seemed very likely that people would generally find the cost too high, attendance would probably drop, and there was a risk that society would have to cover a financial loss. Additionally, our committee has been meeting weekly since 2022 to plan for this current year's virtual conference. And an in-person event is a much more extensive process than the virtual one. So after lots of serious discussion about the risks and the needs for planning, we went to the board of directors and recommended to postpone for 1 year and schedule Gainesville for 2025. After much debate, the board did agree to the postponement. So we were looking forward to an in-person event in 2024, but we truly believe that this is the best course of action, and it allows us to have more options to offer everyone in 2025 and allows FNPS to make the most of a new opportunity to explore collaborative activities with related organizations and other exciting possibilities for smaller events in the meantime. So we are currently meeting and planning for 2025. We meet online on Monday evenings. So if you would like to join us or have questions for me, please contact me at the conference chair at FNPS.org. We can always use extra help from people with experience in publicity and sponsorships, youth engagement, that's an important part of the in-person conference, or CEUs. So please reach out if you can give us a hand. Thank you.
Yes, I can go. I'm Shirley Denton, and I am chair of the FNPS Communications Committee. This has been a great year of change, and I say great because we had been missing something critical in the past. We have it now, and that's a new ED. So some things that have been kind of frozen in space have been moving forward and in a good way. I don't know if you know what the Communications Committee historically did or is doing now. So I'm going to update you mostly on what it's doing now. Historically, it was in charge of anything related to communications, from letterhead to websites to social media, etc. The social media we passed off to staff a couple of years ago, and I'm happy to say Val's been spearheading that now with the assistance of Lilly, who's taking on more and more, and I'm really enthused about where that's been going. On other technical issues, we've been technical for the most part and becoming more so with time because we've been able to pass other aspects of what was communications off to others, and namely now staff, which is a good thing. But this year, some of our accomplishments, first of all, we're going to take credit basically for staff training. Ms. Lynda has gotten a good grasp on our membership management program, which is CiviCRM. And she's been busy teaching and getting administrative services and other staff doing other things, which has taken some of the burden off of the Communications Committee. So I'm very enthused about how that's been going. We've had some accomplishments in related areas. One of them, you probably don't know it, but the Communications Committee has kind of been the technical committee that brought together anything that related to electronic stuff in the past. So we're still doing some of that stuff. But one of the things I think is a good accomplishment, and it goes with a committee that doesn't exist, namely membership. And one of the things that we worked on this year, and this, I'm going to admit it was mostly me, was working with Lynda to get her good stats to be able to assess what is happening with membership. You know, what causes us to grow, what causes us to shrink, retaining members from one year to the next. So we put together some stats that were not built-in stats in CiviCRM. And also we've been simplifying things like the online membership forms. And this is a kind of a joint effort between staff and mostly me, but the people on the committee. We've also been doing some website maintenance. I'm going to talk more about that in terms of where the future lies, but we have just in the recent past, we put in a new Palmetto page. This was Lynda's idea. It was the committee doing it. And it's live instead of the old. Over this past weekend, you actually now have what's called a full text search on the key fields, which means that if you wanted to find something like a Dan Austin article on, let's say, cactus, you could put in Austin, cactus, Daniel, and it should find them. Now, I actually don't think he has an article on cactus, but so it would find the other things that Dan Austin wrote. But that's different from an exact match search. So I'm proud of that. The other thing that has been happening that I'm very proud of is that we have expanded the communications team, which had kind of shrunk down to the technical people, to have more involvement by the non-technical people. For example, our plant section, we added QR codes to, and those QR codes were put together by volunteers who are not actually technically members of the communications committee, but they did it. There were, I think, 780 or so plants on there. So that was 780 or so QR codes that had to be made. So we're getting better at involving ordinary members who can do things. And one of the upcoming things that I'm enthusiastic about is that several of our new updated communications team members are people with interest in improving website content. In specific, they are people who have spoken up to update the garden section, native garden section on the website, and people who have volunteered to get abstracts to the old Palmetto articles that we post on the website. So they are going to be doing a lot of work. And I think it's going to be fun work. You know, those old articles, many of them are really cool to read. So they're going to be building abstracts and putting those in, and they'll be picked up by those full text searches also. So, and the next type of thing we've been doing is working, as an aside, we've always provided support for the chapter websites. We provide both support and kind of some oversight so that they meet the minimum requirements for looking like they belong to FNPS. So whether or not FNPS is actually hosting them or not. Paul Redmond, who has been on the web team, I'm thinking, since long before I was president of FNPS, has been doing a lot of chapter support, and he's been doing a lot of email support. And we've had a number of ongoing issues with email, including a recent one where Google has decided that they won't allow Google emails to get the kind of emails that we have to send from contact forms. They will allow other things. And basically, Paul did a lot of research into that. We have a solution for that one, by the way, which some of our chapters haven't made use of. But we do have a workable solution to that. We can't fix Google, but we can work around Google. So now, and the other thing is that we're doing some technological planning. The world is changing. We know that upgrades are going to have to happen to any and every website that FNPS maintains. It's happening because in the land of websites, all of our websites are written in the language PHP. PHP is changing versions. The only tool we have right now that uses the new version is the one we don't maintain, namely CiviCRM. So we will be updating the forum, website, handbook, all of the chapter sites, and it's going to happen. The old version of PHP is no longer getting security updates. So it's not a choice, but we've got, for the first time, a substantial group of people who have got the technical capabilities of looking into some of the potentials. I would like to give a big thumbs up to Ian Nerney, who actually uploaded and ran a version of the software that our content management system, namely our website, uses to see whether the update would work for us. We think it's marginal. And so we're now also looking at other potential alternatives, including possibly doing something with WordPress plus putting the two things that we think WordPress can't do, namely our conference system and our plants, into an upgraded version of the current system. But we have other potentials. And we're exploring things for the future and doing it kind of in a paced sense so that we can go down a right tunnel instead of making it a patch. Just for example, we're at least considering the concept of what's called a headless CMS or headless content management system that would allow a lot of what we have on our website now to be in real mobile phone apps. And I don't mean just what our website looks like on a phone. It would be real apps. We have not explored that thoroughly, but we're looking at that as a concept. We also are basically looking at more things that volunteers can do. So if you have things you're interested in that you think would help any of the things we're working on, please contact me. I'm at Denton, SDENTON @FNPS.org. I think that is pretty much enough, but we do have other stuff. So if you have questions, please contact me. If you have ideas, please contact me.
Hi, I'm Melanie Simon. I'm chair of the Council of Chapters. The purpose of the council is to facilitate communication among the chapters and with the FNPS board. It serves as a conduit of information that supports and strengthens the FNPS chapters in their pursuit of the FNPS mission and elevates local and regional issues and shares solutions throughout the society. Each chapter has a representative on the council. In 2022, we had 10 meetings with an average attendance of 19 chapters, and 24 of the 33 FNPS chapters attended the required minimum of 4 meetings. Actions achieved. The council sort of took on volunteer hour reporting. So we worked with chapters to almost double prior year reported hours, relying primarily on volunteer hour coordinators from each chapter to bulk report attendance at programs, field trips, and other activities. We had over 63,000 hours reported in 2022, which was almost double what was reported in 2021. So we're making great strides. We still have a number of chapters who are not reporting hours, and we're working on getting them to report. Another thing the council has done is do membership and educational brochure printing and distribution. We're coordinating that. We've implemented an annual ordering procedure so chapters can regularly request and receive brochures. In June of 2022, we did a council survey asking chapters to self-report on whether they were doing great, whether they were stable, or whether they're struggling. Self-reported was 12% great, 64% stable, and 24% struggling. We also asked the chapters to identify their challenges. The biggest one was participation, both in chapter leadership and in participation in activities. Publicity and outreach was identified, membership growth and retention, and finding programs and speakers were the other items. What we did in response to that was we hosted a publicity and outreach workshop given by Jenny Steibolt in August of 2022. And we hosted Shirley Denton doing membership database training in September of 2022. We've also created a speaker list. It's basically a spreadsheet of speakers and presentations for all chapters to use. Great news, at the beginning of this year, we added 2 new officers, so we now have a full complement of council leadership. Lisa Stanley is the new council vice chair, and Megan Pratz is the new council secretary. We have several actions in progress right now. One is the member survey. Hopefully everyone has seen that. If you have not, there is a link on the news tab on the FNPS website. We are asking all members and supporters, so non-members as well, to take this survey. It asks about membership, interests, and solicits feedback. We intend to provide each chapter with reports on what their members and supporters have said, and also let them compare those responses to overall society responses. So far, a number of chapters have done very well at getting their members to respond. Ixia, Mangrove, Martin, and Sarracenia have gotten responses from over 30% of their memberships, while Contadina, Naples, Nature Coast, Serenoa, and Sweet Bay have gotten responses from over 20% of their memberships. We're still running the survey for a couple more weeks, so please take it, and please ask anyone you are in contact with to also take the survey. Another thing we're working on is what we call a new member package. It's a package of useful information that we can send to new members that will give them sort of the lay of the land of where to find resources, give them basic information about native plants, and help them get started on their native plant journey. Future actions, we're planning to update the council survey and do additional training workshops. Anyone who is interested can attend a council meeting and participate in any of these initiatives. If you're interested, contact me at msimon@fnps.org. Thanks for your time today.
Well, hello, everyone. Anne is having difficulties reconnecting due to the thunderstorms that many of you as viewers are also experiencing. I'm going to pull up Anne's report. Lynda Davis is happy to jump in as well and discuss it briefly with you all. And I do not have that share screen capability, apparently. Interesting. Files. All right. Well, Valerie, perhaps you can pull it up on your end. Thank you.
I'm happy to jump in as well.
Thank you. So while Valerie actually pulls it up for our viewers, I'd like to touch on some of the actions that Anne and the Finance Committee have contributed. to FNPS. One of them is the legacy drive that we have in August. It's called National Will Month. Anne is the one that is taking the lead on this. Last year, she did the same thing. This year, we're already conceptualizing for August. It's a wonderful campaign. We encourage all our members to remember FNPS in their wills. For example, Chuck McCartney from Dade County left us a legacy bequest that FNPS is grateful for and is using towards the mission. Another thing that we wanted to discuss is the annual appeal campaign. So it was wonderful and record-breaking this year. I should say last year, wasn't it, Lynda? And all thanks to our team. I think the common consensus is that not a single person can take credit for this. It was really the entire crowd and our belief in the FNPS mission that really broke the record and set the expectations far higher this year than before. So well done as far as the annual campaign is concerned. Lynda, did you want to touch on anything else, or I will continue?
No, I mean, well, just really briefly, just to sort of reiterate really that the Finance Committee's mission, the purpose of the Finance Committee is to ensure the long-term financial well-being of the society. So if there are any members, that are interested in getting involved in that aspect of our work, to please do get in touch and get involved with this committee. So, they do discuss sort of all financial health related topics. So from annual budgeting to fundraising, how to manage investments, for example, in our science endowment, and how that all relates to our strategic planning. So just to sort of capture what the committee does. And I'm happy at once you've finished, Mark, to talk us through the 2022 finances as well.
Excellent. I just wanted to touch base on funding goals and fundraising. That is something under the purview of the Finance Committee. So just like Lynda said, if you are interested in this aspect of FNPS, please get in touch with Lynda or Anne Redmond. I believe her email address is aredmond@fnps.org or finance@fnps.org. It should route to her email just the same. Thank you. Lynda, please go ahead.
Great, thanks. So what I'm going to do today is just give you a very, very quick update on the 2022 finances. Obviously, that financial year is now closed out, so I'm able to update you all on that. And so our total revenue for 2022 was $374,000, of which almost 70% of it, so $252,000 of that revenue does come from our membership fees. And so that hopefully makes it clear that not only are our members important for lots of other reasons, but financially that those membership fees are what underpin how the organization is allowed to is able to develop. We also received $83,000 in unrestricted contributions. So that's contributions that can be spent on any purpose, towards the mission, obviously, but within that purpose. That comes from various donations and the annual campaign. And then we received $75,000 in grants and other restricted contributions. So those are contributions that must be spent on specific activities. And the 2022 conference had a revenue of $24,000. So that was a great result for the conference. As Mark's already mentioned, the annual campaign in 2022 was very successful. We raised over $55,000, which we're very excited by and very motivated to continue to grow that number. So in the coming year. In terms of expenses for last year, our total expenses were $420,000, and that's broken down in program area of about 38% was spent on education, 16% on conservation, 5% on policy, 2% on science, and then the remainder went on management and fundraising. So we had a net operating revenue of minus $61,000 last year, and that was a planned net loss for last year. We had plan that in our budget. Our cash position at the end of 2022 was 348,000. Our board does approve up to 200,000, so anything over 200,000 in terms of cash position. So that's a good position for us to be in. And our science endowment ended the year at $166,000. So in 2022, we did approve the 2023 budget, which is a good thing because we're halfway through 2023 now. We are tracking well against this year's budget, and in the fall we'll be working on the 2024 budget, and so that will continue to roll forward. One thing I did want to mention, which I know has been touched on before by Melanie, is the volunteer hours. So in 2022, we reported over 63,000 hours, which has a value of $1.7 million. And it's interesting because obviously when we're talking about budgets and finance, we are talking about, cash and real money, but the value of that work, 76% of that $1.7 million of volunteer time was spent on mission related programming. So it really is, the work that's out in the field trips, the outreach, the education, plant rescues, conservation, citizen science, all of that value that comes from those volunteers is really significant. So whilst it doesn't necessarily show in our budget, essentially what we're doing, a lot of our time is spent facilitating that activity to happen, and we're so grateful for that huge value from our volunteers of all of that in-kind time and energy. So I did want to include that in the financial report just to sort of bring it home of how that relates to our overall budget. So thank you for your time. That's me complete on the finances for 2022.
FNPS offers a number of awards to recognize individuals for their service and mentorship. These awards include the Green Palmetto Award, which is given to individuals who have made impactful contributions regionally to FNPS. Congratulations. Sandy Boylston, Patricia Burgos, Susan Carpenter, Mark Elliott, Carol Ebert, David Martin, Melanie Simon, Johnny Spittler, Al Squires, Laura Bennett Kimball, Julie Becker, Rebecca St. John, Rosie Mulholland, Ben Gigliotti, Brian Silverman, and Meg Macaluso. The Silver Palmetto Award, which is given to individuals who have been recognized by the State Board for their expertise and dedication to FNPS. Congratulations, Athena Phillips, Ann Redmond, Mac Camacho Vieira, Jackie Raleigh, Bonnie Basham, Stephanie Dunn, Kaylee Adams, Chelsea Lenoble, Jennifer Hopton Villalobos, Valeria Yon, and Nita Villalobos Bell. And the Mentor Award, which is given to an individual who has demonstrated enduring and remarkable legacy in the field of native plant conservation and mentorship of the next generation. With the support of the State Board, it is my pleasure to announce the recipients of the Mentor Award live. Thank you, everyone. A hearty congratulations to our Green and Silver Palmetto Award winners. Well deserved. Thank you so much for your service. The board acknowledges it. Your chapters acknowledge it. And together we are stronger and we will go further. Moving on to the most important and prestigious award, the Mentor Awards. So the first up is Susan Carr. Congratulations, Dr. Carr. I have a short speech prepared for each of our Mentor Award winners. Dr. Susan Carr is a respected and dedicated botanist who has made significant contributions to the field of native plant conservation in Florida. She has served as president and treasurer for the State Board, and during that time has made landmark changes in the governance and structure of our nonprofit. She has over 20 years of experience working with native plants, and her expertise is sought after by scientists, land managers, and the general public. Dr. Carr is a passionate advocate for native plants, and she has been instrumental in the development of several successful land conservation programs across the state. She is also a gifted educator, and she has shared her knowledge of native plants with countless students and adults through her teaching, writing, and public presentations. Dr. Carr is an exemplary role model for young scientists and has given her time freely in diverse aspects to the Florida Native Plant Society. Again, congratulations, Dr. Carr. Next, we have Chris Matson. Chris Matson is a dedicated and passionate mentor who has been instrumental in the development of a permanent rare plant scrub hardening and conservation area at Lake Louisa State Park. He has worked tirelessly to educate and train Florida Native Plant Society members on the importance of rare and endangered plants and the techniques involved in propagating them. His efforts have resulted in the successful establishment of a thriving multi-year plant rescue program that benefits several chapters in the region. His expansion of citizen science, accompanied by experiential learning opportunities for members, has been invaluable. A patient and encouraging mentor, Chris has helped many newcomers discover and develop a love for our native plants. He's a true asset to the Florida Native Plant Society, and his work at Lake Louisa State Park is making a real difference in the conservation of several important ecosystems. Congratulations, Chris. And lastly, we have Jacqueline, or as we say, Jackie Sword. Jacqueline Sword is 91 years young. She is a standout for the award because of a not because of a decorated education background, but because she has been a mentor to not one, but 3 long-serving FNPS chapter presidents. A tireless and impeccable advocate for native plants in her community, she has been instrumental in furthering FNPS in Orange County, notably in Winter Park. She has been a faithful volunteer for numerous FNPS outreaches spanning decades and exemplifies the lifetime endurance of an individual's support for the mission. She has shared her knowledge, steady tutelage with many of us, and she's a true mentor that has set so many of the younger generation on the path to long-term service, including yours truly. An individual with exceptional moral probity and embodiment of selfless conduct, it is my honor to recognize Jackie Sword for the Mentor Award. Congratulations, Jackie.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much, Mark. And so now, a big, congratulations. Thank you to all of our committee chairs for their presentations and our great leadership talking about everything we've been doing for the past year. So now it's time to go into our voting. Members were emailed the voting form this morning, and it was posted in the members only Facebook group, and there was another email last week. So I will put the link here in the chat for everyone to go vote. We have both, we have the voting code, which is for members. So please check your membership. You should have received that email with the code and your first and last name. And then the first question will be approval of the minutes of the 2022 annual meeting. There is a link and there's a correction link that Shirley sent out this morning. And then there's the slate of officers and directors. So I'm going to read those to you now. Athena Phillips for VP Admin, you just heard from. Chris Moran for Treasurer. Adam Arundel for Director. Mac Camacho Vieira for Director. Deborah Curry for Director. Susan Early for Director. Jane Graham, Esquire, for Director. Gage LaPierre for Director. And David Martin for Director. So I have posted the link here. So there's the form. And I will give you guys, how about 5 minutes? So it's 11:28. So we will go to 11:33. And I think I can get a timer. Let's see if I can set a timer up. Yes, and Anna Doze asks in the chat if we have any real estate attorneys or active lawyers in FNPS. Well, you can vote for one. Jane Graham is an active attorney in the Tampa Bay area who would be an incoming board member if you decide to vote for the slate. So keep in mind that the slate it's a one vote for the entire slate, and the candidate statements are linked in the voting form. Kate. I'm just going to give it a second more because we have a few votes coming in. Still, we have 77 responses. And it worked. Okay, great. Okay, all right. So I think the responses have slowed down. Let me make sure nobody's texting me. Oh, somebody's texting me. Okay, so I'm going to pull the results up over here, and looks like 100% approval, 79 votes for approving the minutes of the 2022 annual meeting, and then the slate, 100% approval. So thank you everyone for that. And Mark, is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up this annual meeting of the members?
Not at all. I just need to call the meeting to an official close. So I hereby end the annual members meeting, wishing you all a very safe and dry day today, and looking forward to meeting you all in the upcoming months in the future. Stay safe out there. Thank you so much for supporting native plants and our mission. Thank you so much for being part of our native plant family, and onwards to more bigger and better things. Thank you.
Thank you everyone. Have a great Saturday.